So now it's time to inlay the logo on the headstock. What I'm doing, I don't have the proper tools to actually do inlay. Not even the basics. I do have a Dremel, but you need a base and all kind of stuff and particular types of bits and stuff, and I don't have the money for that. So, and I really don't even have the proper hand tools to actually try to do something like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this as simply as I can and do it with whatever tools I can find. And what I'm doing is I'm going to use a technique that I learned in the military for working on metal, because that is what I actually am trained in, is metalwork. And I'm using this awl to mark little pin points in the headstock, and I'm going to use a technique called chain drilling. And I pull that off now, and there's a bunch of tiny little holes in the shape of my logo. And I have some tape on this drill bit. It's a 3/32 drill bit. The material I'm inlaying is a 1/16 of an inch wide, so I want it to be slightly smaller so that I can kind of sneak up on the size of the channels that I have to cut. So what I'll do is I'll drill to depth, and that piece of tape will serve as a visual depth stop to keep me from going too deep. And once I get that drilled, then we will move on to actually excavating the different channels, and I'm going to use an X-Acto blade and pretty much any tool. This little tool here I found at like an antique thrift store local to me, or almost local anyway. And it's just got a double bevel cutting edge on it, and I sharpened it like I would sharpen anything else. And this and whatever tools I can find that are small enough to pick out a 1/16 of an inch wide channel. The headstock logo will be in 3 separate pieces, so I will have to excavate 3 separate channels. And it's a slow process. I have to go slow and carefully, otherwise it won't come out right. Now I'm using that little tool that I told you I got at the local thrift store, flea market, antique place, kind of like a chisel. I may actually turn this into a very small 1/16 inch chisel. And now the corner of a card scraper, just anything that I can find that I can dig these channels out with, that's thin enough that it won't make them too big for the material I'm going to use in them. And you just dig it out. Got to make the walls square and flat. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this piece of the binding that this guitar is bound in to make an inlay on the headstock. And I'm marking the length roughly. I'll cut it, and then it's a hand fit kind of deal. I'll take a file and file it a little bit at a time until it's the right length to fit in this channel. And you also have to be really careful with this binding because it will bend, but there are some fairly tight curves, a couple of fairly tight curves in my logo, and this binding will snap. I snapped 2 or 3 different pieces of it, probably more than that, making this video and trying to get practice for this video and for doing it on the actual headstock. And I broke them. They snap real easy. So you got to, basically what I do is I put it in that channel, in the corner of the channel where the bend's going to start, and just slowly bend it back and forth until I get closer and closer to the curve. The third part of the inlay, I actually took a blow dryer and heated the binding up, curved it as best I could, and then put it in cold water while I held the shape. And that worked really well, and the next time I do this, I certainly may do that again as well. But here I'm just tapping it in there to see if it will fit, to get it seated as tight and as good as I can. I don't want it to just fall in the slot. I want to have to tap it in a bit because I want to fit as tight as I can get it. And I'm fitting the second piece. You go in and you excavate, and you test fit. And that one's fitting pretty good. But I mean, if it doesn't fit the way I want, then I'll pull it out and excavate the channel a bit more. And now I'm working on the third piece, and it's just the same thing over and over. You have to just be very patient. And then once I get them all in there, I hit them with some thin super glue, CA. I could use other, but this is faster. And then I'll hit it with some accelerator, which I didn't really need. And then take a chisel and trim the binding down as close to the surface of the wood as I can. I don't know if you saw, but I've got my magnifying headset on. This whole process, I need that headset. And then I'll take a scraper and clean it up. I really need a better headset, but this works. But they sell them for 50 or 60 bucks. I just can't come off with that kind of money. And then I'll sand it with a freely held paper, and then paper wrapped around a flat block. I'll sand the whole headstock, make sure it's flat. And now I'm going to put some naphtha on it so that you can see what it would kind of look like under finish. And that's my logo. Thanks for watching. I appreciate you coming along. Bless you. I'll talk to you later.